Good morning. Good morning. How wonderful it is to be here. I'd like to thank all of you for letting me grace this beautiful place and to be a grace for me. And I'd like to thank you, Reverend Jack, for arranging for me to be here, and what a blessing it's been. And thank you for this incredible month that you all have had. Have you had a good time this month? Yeah. So happy 78th anniversary. God bless you.
Reverend Jack, I'd like to extend a special appreciation to you specifically. Thank you so much for creating and deepening this spiritual community that all of you are an essential part of. Maybe you only come here once a week, perhaps even once a month. Maybe you're here every day. No matter what, you're an essential part of this spiritual community. And I really want to honor all that you've created in this community. You can walk around and just look at the campus and see that there is a lot of investment in the prosperity that you are, that we are, as the body of Christ. But I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I?
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So this is our lesson titled, Coming Home Again.
One day in the monastery.
Master, my meditation practice is horrible. My feet fall asleep, and I can't seem to focus. This place just does not seem like home to me. It's so uncomfortable, and I can't free my mind. It's just so distracting every time I try to meditate.
Student, this too shall pass.
A week later, the student came back to his teacher.
Master, you were right. I see with all new eyes. I hear with all new ears. My meditation practice is filled with peace, comfort, contentment.
Student, this too shall pass.
We're sharing with you the ideas that are presented by a master teacher who is still amongst us here on the planet. His name is Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a Buddhist monk and comes from Vietnam. He's written a book entitled Living Buddha, Living Christ. This morning we're going to look at the ideas that are in Buddhism, but also in Christianity. It's almost as if Reverend Blaine and I have thought about the possibility of there being a unity to all the pathways to God.
Who would have thought? All right, so this first quote comes from this Dharma talk by Thich Nhat Hanh. He said, "We all need love. Without love, we may not be able to survive as individuals and as a planet." I don't know about you, but it seems like my life has been a journey to find love, yeah? In fact, 24 years ago, I was feeling lonely and separate and afraid, and I thought, I'm gonna find love. So I went to every church in the Bay Area, in San Francisco Bay Area, looking for love. How many of you are here looking for love today? Okay, just look straight ahead, right? Don't look around, because this is true confessions time, all right? Because I know I went to all those churches looking for this right relationship, and I'm looking over the crowd. Well, am I going to go to this church? You know, how many single women are here, you know? And so how many of you came today with that frame of mind? It's all good. Nobody admits to it now.
I'm looking for love. I'm looking for love.
Okay. So I found love. I found love. But the love I was looking for wasn't the love that I found. The love that I found was here in myself. The love I found was to love myself and to be present to that love. And it changed my life. How about you, Reverend Geo?
My spiritual journey began about 30 years ago as a result of my introduction to the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the ideas that was introduced to me was that it was essential and necessary for me to expand my spiritual life. So I thought that perhaps it might be a good idea to go to a church in order to expand my spiritual life. I hear they talk about spiritual things in churches. And that's exactly how I discovered Unity. In Albuquerque, New Mexico, I discovered Unity, and it was an awakening to spiritual community that I'd never experienced on that level before. I truly expanded my spiritual life in that way. It was a place that I could call home. There was that experience in other ways, that I had the place where I could call home, but as a result of spiritual community, that idea of home was even deeper. As a result of being in that community, I was introduced to a man named Reverend Sky St. John. He said that he had a ministerial internship program at Unity Church of Hawaii, and that I should move to Hawaii and engage in that. And my first thought was, how could I leave Albuquerque? But this is my home. This is where I've experienced a deepening idea and concept of God. And as a result of coming here, I got an even deeper experience of home. A few months later, there was a possibility that I could become the spiritual leader at Windward Unity. And my first response was, how could I leave home? There's such a great home here at Unity Church of Hawaii. The wonder is that as I expand my spiritual consciousness, as I'm willing to take a risk, then I have a deeper and deeper experience of home. I have a deeper way of knowing God. The co-founder of the Unity movement, Charles Fillmore, talks about that idea of knowing God, of finding God. Charles Fillmore writes that the real search for all people is for God. They may think they are looking for other things, but they must eventually admit that it is God they seek. I greatly appreciate that the story that you shared is exactly that. The story that I shared is exactly that. I thought I needed a place where I didn't feel quite so lonely, or I knew that there was a place where I wanted to feel home, and I am at home in God.
There's a wonderful quote that Thich Nhat Hanh says in this Dharma talk about Sangha. He says, "It is said that the next Buddha will be named Maitreya, the Buddha of love. I believe that the Maitreya might not take the form of an individual, but as a community, showing us the way of love and compassion." I love that, because it shows a similarity between Buddhism and Unity, what we believe. That the Maitreya, the next Buddha, is a community, is a consciousness. And in Unity, we believe that Jesus demonstrated the Christ principle, yeah? He demonstrated his perfection and showed us that we can rise up to that perfection and that we can be the Christ. And the Christ, Jesus wasn't given the name Christ in his lifetime. The idea really came after he left. And so as he demonstrated the Christ, so too you and I are demonstrating the Christ. And for me, what I understand now is that the second coming of the Christ isn't about Jesus coming back. I think he'd probably say, I went there and I did that. Got the t-shirt, has the earth on it, kind of done that one. But for me, the Christ is that aha moment that we have, that I have. And I know that I've experienced it when I forgive myself for something that I did. Or when I can forgive somebody else for something that I perceive that they did to me. And as soon as I have that moment of aha, right? That's the first coming in Christ in consciousness. And then the second is when I go, I get it. And that's the aha. That's the second coming of the Christ.
Here in Unity, many of us are familiar with the idea that God is within us. It's what we teach repeatedly, that presence of God is here within. What's beautiful about Buddhism, Christianity, and Unity is that it's a wonderful thing that Maitreya, which we've just learned, is present in our relationship with one another. As we engage in that relationship, a deeper experience of the Buddha, of the Christ, is what we get to have, to live, and to hold. It's a truly amazing thing that Maitreya is present at the grocery store. Yes, that lady checking out at Safeway is Maitreya. At Starbucks, the barista is Maitreya. That guy behind me on the freeway, that's Maitreya. That relationship that we have all around us, it's the presence of God in all things.
Yeah. There's a word that is used in Buddhism called Dharma. Yeah. You hear people say, oh, it's my Dharma. Yeah. And what that means is it's my path, right? It is my path of realization. It's what is bringing you into our awareness. For me, my Dharma started when I was 8 years old, and my mom died suddenly of a stroke. Here one day, gone the next. And then 4 years later, my dad died in a boating accident in Long Beach, California. And then I began to see what I thought was abandonment in my siblings. I had 5 siblings. I've lost all but one. And in my relationships, I have in the past seen this pattern of abandonment and felt like I was being left behind, that somebody was leaving me, because that's what I was holding in my consciousness. And my Dharma has been to know that the Christ presence, the God presence that is within me cannot leave me. The love that I searched for out here and that I had out here is really here, and that can never leave me. And that's helped me, as a result, to have stronger relationships and to be able to be the presence and the love and the light that I get to be.
As human beings, we are built to be in relationship. It's important for me to remember that relationship is an action and an activity of the Christ within me, of the Buddha nature that is within me. In Buddhism, we call that Sangha. Sangha is that small group of people who committed to follow the Buddha in community. In Sangha, they made the decision that they would live into a greater idea of who they could be to achieve nirvana. The same thing happened throughout Christianity. There was a connection and a collection of people known as Sangha. Unity Church of Hawaii is Sangha. Unity Windward is Sangha. Unity Church of Maui is Sangha. The whole Unity movement is Sangha. New Thought is Sangha. As we recognize how this expands out into the whole world, we recognize that our group, the people with whom we have a relationship, is Sangha. That all relationships, no matter how brief or how intense they may seem to be or actually be, that Sangha is actually the presence of Christ and the presence of Buddha. This is not a new idea. This has gone on for centuries and centuries. And it was presented to Christianity through the Gospel according to Matthew, the 18th chapter and the 20th verse. Jesus says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, there am I in the midst of them." That presence of Sangha is in the midst of all of us.
I wouldn't tell anybody in public, but I like to think that Jesus had 2 personalities. I wouldn't call it a disorder, but if you look at Jesus and we reflect on him in the Garden of Gethsemane, do you remember when he said, "Take this cup from me"? Yeah? He was expressing his human self. Yeah? Jesus was titled Jesus of Nazareth or Jesus, son of Joseph. And Jesus was a very human person in many ways. I think sometimes we think of, that he came and from the very beginning, he totally got it. I think that Jesus had moments of, I'm not quite so sure. I'm not quite so sure that I want to go through with this. Nothing personal, all you people, but it seems like something's going on here that I'm not sure I want to do. So Jesus had that personal side, that human being side, and he also had the I am, the Christ side of him, that part of him that is totally divine, and that part of us that is totally pure and divine. And when he says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name," in the presence of the Christ, in the recognition that we are the Christ, when we recognize that, in other words, when somebody pushes our buttons, ever happen for you? I know for me that doesn't always happen at the top of the mountain or on the beach by myself, right? Unless somebody kicks sand on me, right? But it's in community, in that Sangha, that we find that our buttons get pushed. And why do we have buttons? So they can get pushed. And when our buttons are pushed, it's telling us that here we have a spiritual opportunity for transformation. Yay! Oh boy! Oh heck. Isn't it great to be on the spiritual path? And when we can recognize and behold the Christ in someone, in the midst of whatever that is. You know what I'm saying? Somebody is railing on you or me. If we can just kind of back up and go, "Oh, you are the Christ."
It's been a beautiful experience these last few days. Blaine and I have worked together for the first time, and I could easily behold the Christ in him. Yet I've also worked with some people where it was like, I don't necessarily see the Christ in this. But that's the wonderful part. That's the very thing that I get to stand up and see. Wherever I might wish to be healed, that Christ is present to heal me.
Yeah. Who was it that wrestled with an angel? Was it Jacob? Wrestled with an angel? And he wrestled with the angel, and he said, I'm going to hang on to you until you bless me. Or maybe the angel said, I'm going to hang on to you. Is that the way it was? The first right. Yeah, Jacob said, I'm going to hang on to this until you bless me. And that's what we get to do in our Sangha, whether it's here or in our relationships, in our homes, is hang on until we can behold that Christ in them and behold the Christ in ourselves. I think that Wayne Moeller put it beautifully. He wrote, "We are called to be strong companions and clear mirrors to one another, to seek those who reflect with compassion and a keen eye how we are doing, whether we seem centered or off course. We need the nourishing company of others to create the circle needed for growth, freedom, and healing." So let's take a breath together, and knowing that we are one in Sangha, because we pray together, we meditate together, and we talk to each other and have relationships with each other. We behold the Christ in each other. And we have an affirmation that I'll read to you and then ask you to affirm it with me. I am one in spiritual community. I experience peace, joy, and love right now. Let's say it together, Sangha. I am one in spiritual community. I experience peace, joy, and love right now. When? Right now. When? Right now. And so it is.
This morning we've introduced the ideas of Sangha and the possibility that we can step into a greater idea of spiritual community. It's here, right now, present in you, through you, and as you.
Another day in the monastery.
Master, I'm so miserable here. Everyone here doesn't support my ideas. I have such creative ideas, and they just act as though it's unimportant. I just don't feel at home here. I'm completely miserable.
Student, you can love yourself and others.
A week later in the monastery.
Master, you were right. I see with all new eyes. I've awakened to how I can improve myself through the interactions with others. I see that their ideas are valid too, and I know that I can step into something greater. I'm so at home here.
Student, you can love yourself and others too.
We invite you once more to live your Sangha, to move through your Dharma, no matter how challenging it may seem to be, and know that the presence of Christ and the presence of Buddha is living in you. Let's proclaim our affirmation once more as one heart and one consciousness, out loud, together. I am one in spiritual community. I experience peace,